Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are looking at the Constructicons. Now, unfortunately, I made a little goof. Um, I don't have, and I forget their names, so I'm gonna really mess a little bit of this up. Our concrete mixer. I don't have the concrete mixer. I thought I had gotten the right one, but unfortunately, I got two scrappers. So I have two scrappers here. I know the scrapper does become a foot. I don't know if I can get them put together as two scrappers for the feet and no cement truck. And I don't, like I said, I don't really remember his name offhand. But we'll have to see what we can do on this. Although I will say I'm not going to get this all transformed while on camera because it's going to take me a dickens of time, and I just know that once I get it together, I don't intend to really separate it. Once I get the combiners, I put them in their combined form and I leave them there. I think that's really, for me, the best way to kind of have it. So that's just how I'm planning on doing this. I'm looking over the instructions a little bit so I can hopefully figure out exactly how I'm putting all these guys together. Um, let's see. And I'm hoping, as I'm looking all this over, I can figure out exactly what our missing one's name is. And it looks like it's Mixmaster. All right. That's the one we're missing. So hopefully I can get it with two scrappers, but I guess we'll see, and we'll go from there. We'll see how this all works. So I'm going to kind of pause this, take the time I need to try and get this all put together and make it kind of hopefully work, or at least propped up or something like that, and we'll go from there, and then we'll see how this works. So, all right. So after a little bit of fun and messing around here, we got Devastator put together as much as I can. Now, I will say the way that the bottom joints are done up, these are different between the two of them. So I will have to try and figure out how I can order or whatever. Get Mixmaster here, so that way we can get Devastator completed. He was the first and kind of in a lot of regards the most complex, because I mean we have two bots here. We have a bot, and of course two bots for each leg. The fact that it was put together this way originally, and I mean the the actual Decepticons were actually a lot smaller in a lot of regards. I mean, they didn't keep a certain size or whatever else. They just made it to make it, and then we went from there. Today, we're blessed because everyone's getting roughly about the same size treatment, or if they're supposed to be a smaller character, they literally are a smaller character. So, in those regards, I feel kind of blessed that we have that availability, that we can do that. So, as you can see, I have him propped up, but having two scrappers here, that's not really working. I don't have them actually connected here. It's just kind of sitting on there, so that way he's kind of standing up a little bit crooked, but here we are. Now, one of the other things I have yet to show off is the fact that we actually do have Menasor, as well as the aerial bots here. Shoot, now I can't even think of the name of them when they're all combined. He's actually complete. I actually have all of them. The only thing I'm not very fond of, and I kind of did it a little bit with Menasor, is whenever we get everyone together, the feet are on the back, where in the actual cartoon they were in the front. So please keep that in mind. One of the things that, we went to a 5-bot setup here. So we have Silverbolt here, and then we have the other 4. And I'm going to always forget their names because they came in later, and they didn't show up all that often. Not in a cartoon. Now, in the comic book, that might be a little bit different, as I lose Devastator. As Here, let me just kind of set them down here. Even with Devastator, we didn't see them all that often. I mean, the main ones were always Starscream, Thundercracker, Soundwave, Megatron, and then beyond them, they would just sporadically come and go. So even with the Autobots, of course, you'd have Optimus Prime, you'd have Bumblebee, and then it depended on what the series or what the story was. You would actually float around, and sometimes even Bumblebee was a kind of minor character. They would sit around some of the other ones. It's just the whole thing of which ones do you really remember the most. Some of them, because if you come in later, where the second series or whatever wasn't really shown as much, at least for me. So I didn't get to see it quite as much. After the movie and everything else, it was harder to see some of these other ones. Some of them are iconic because of the movie. And we go from there, but it's just the whole thing of depending on when you jumped in and what was shown in your area, because some areas would show some episodes a little bit more than other areas. So and to really kind of point that out is I do remember watching the Star Trek animated series, because they did a season of Star Trek as an animated, and there's one episode I could have swore they replayed that same episode about like 10 times. And that's the one I really remember the most. It's, going back in the Spock's history kind of stuff, So depending on where you are, what episodes got replayed, you might remember some characters a little bit more than others. So with this, I mean, it's wonderful bringing these guys out and having them shown. And then with Menasor here, and I've got this one backwards because to me, that's how he was displayed. He was the foot. So the nice thing is, when we're looking at these guys now, if I don't have them, I don't have all of them, but I do have, my goodness, my mind is just a wonderful thing as it just starts forgetting everything. As we have our main character here, we can at least get the shell, and I only have 2. I could have swore I had 3 of them, but I only have 2 of them here. So I will have to try and see what it's gonna cost if I can find them, probably on eBay or something like that, just so I can at least get the base vehicles to get them put up here. Maybe I can get them for cheap or something like that. But I picked the 2 vehicles up on a Christmas a couple years ago, and I had just gotten why can't I remember his name? I really don't understand why I can't. But anyways, when I picked up the main guy here not that long ago, and it's just one of those, I kind of put all this together, which is where I expect it to be, and I'm like, I'll get the other ones here on there. So I'm looking around here this morning trying to get this all together. Now, one of the things I'm going to say, and this always trips me up, mainly because if you've watched my series and all that stuff, for any of this stuff, I have a habit of breaking things. So these are held together here, and they do hold on really nice. And I'm sitting there like, okay, this has got to come apart here somehow, but I don't want to break it. What I ended up doing is right here we actually have a tab which sits right in there. So the idea is we put it in here, and then it actually separates this. So I'm using the back of the knife, push that in, and then there we are. You could use something else besides a knife, but I have a knife handy, so there we are. Now, the other thing is I'm having a dickens of a time trying to get this to want to sit in here, and of course I don't have the original instructions anymore. I don't know where I put them. I set them off to the side. They're in a box somewhere, I'm sure of it. So I'm trying to get this on here, and I'm fighting with this. I think I've spent like good 5-10 minutes just trying to get this on here, and now I'm going to fight with it again. I just got it barely sitting on there, so it'll have to do. Just like this up here, this is supposed to sit into that notch. So somehow I'm supposed to get that in there decently, and I'm fighting with it. So I can get this to go in, and a little bit here, but all in all, not very much, not very well. So it just kind of sits, kind of cantered off there, and you can see that. I will have to try and look up the instructions or whatever to figure out exactly what I'm doing wrong here, which, you know, I usually, for a lot of the robots, you know, whether it's Autobots or Decepticons, I usually try to keep the instructions. But I would say, if you know, as a collector or whatever, it's always good to keep the instructions, because there's times where, and I've had harder ones in the past, I can only get them to join together. There was an Optimus Prime and a Ultra Magnus that joined together, and the only way I could ever get that to work is by having the instructions. It would take me about a half hour to do that. So, you know, having the Constructicons, the Menasor, the aerial bots, you know, I can't remember anything here. My mind has just gone, which is, you know, probably just on par, because that's the way it usually seems to be when we do these videos. It's just, you know, how things are. These being the really nice, big, tall, kind of Titans, without calling them Titans, I mean, because they're the combiners, but, you know, they're really on the verge of being almost Titans. It's always interesting being able to see them, how big they get. So, with that, thank you for stopping by. Thanks for visiting. Sorry I don't have everything together, and my mind is always just a big jumble of useless information that never seems to want to spit out whenever I want it. But here we are today. Thanks again for stopping by. It's always wonderful having you here. I hope you're doing well, and I'll see you in the next video.